Saturday, our Black GPs or consultants present on those health and well-being topics that affect you, your family members and friends. Some weeks will vary and will include other panel members such as pharmacists, specialist nurses and faith leaders. Our health hours cover a range of topics and include mental health, heart health, women's health, reproductive and sexual health issues, men's health, respiratory problems, cancer, sickle cell and many more. We have not forgotten to include within our health hours the many societal, cultural, religious and racial challenges that can go hand in hand with health problems and influence how we should respond to meet health and well-being needs. The sessions are designed for you and we want you to use the time to listen, learn, share your experiences and ask questions to our Black doctors. During every session, we will gather your feedback so we can continue to respond to the needs of our Black community. To request any particular topic, please email health@carn.org.uk. We encourage you to invite others to our health hour sessions. Spread the word in our community.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Hope everybody can hear me. Thank you so much for joining us for today's health hour. My name is Dr. Natalie Daly, and I'm a consultant in public health medicine. And as a public health doctor, I'm really happy to be with you all today to hear from Dr. Von Shuro, who is a senior GP partner about breastfeeding, which is a topic of great public health importance. And you have the opportunity today to learn about the benefits of breastfeeding, of which there are many, as well as explore its cultural and emotional aspects. I'm also really pleased that we will have some special guests with us this morning, Laswana Griffith, who will be talking about her experience of breastfeeding while living with HIV, and Mrs. Shami Awe, who will be talking about some of the challenges she has experienced with associated with breastfeeding. Now, this health hour actually comes at the end of World Breastfeeding Week and 2 weeks before Black Breastfeeding Week. And the theme for this year's World Breastfeeding Week was Prioritize Breastfeeding, Create Sustainable Support Systems, which focused on the need to create lasting and equitable support for all breastfeeding mothers. And for Black Breastfeeding Week, the theme is Boots on the Ground, rooted in breastfeeding success, grounded in community support, which celebrates and highlights the importance of community support for successful breastfeeding. So the themes of these 2 weeks are very much intertwined and speak to the importance of support for mothers during their breastfeeding journey. There will be an opportunity for you to ask questions, so please do put them in the chat or raise your hand at the end of our presentations. The chat will be monitored. I'm really pleased now to hand over to Dr. Von Shuro for her presentation.
Thank you very much, Dr. Natalie. It is wonderful to meet you this morning, and what a joy it is for me to join you, all other co-hosts from the Caribbean and African Health Network, and every woman and supporting men. Thank you so much for joining our health hour this morning. It is such an honor for me to be a speaker, and I want to thank you all for inviting me because this topic is a very dear and a very sensitive topic that is also close to my heart for a number of reasons. Yes, in addition to being a doctor during the day, I am actually a mom of 4 now, and I have just finished breastfeeding twin girls who are now just 2, just turned 2 in June. And it's been quite a journey. I breastfed all my children, the boys for almost 18 to 19 months, and I breastfed the twin girls up to a year. And each child presented a different set of joys and a different set of challenges as I navigated motherhood. Obviously, being a GP myself, I knew very well from a scientific, from a medical perspective, the various advantages of breastfeeding. So I knew that's what I wanted to do. And I also need to give credit to my African heritage. For the first 17 years of my life, I was born and bred in Zimbabwe. It is such a beautiful, beautiful country and culture that normalizes breastfeeding. So my background, it's not unusual if you ask any Zimbabwean women. If you get to Zimbabwe walking on the streets, it's not unusual to see a woman with her breast out, beautifully feeding her child in social settings. Everywhere you go, it is a normal thing. It is a healthy thing. It's a celebrated thing. It's an encouraged thing. So I have to give credit even to my father, who's now late. But I recall with my first baby, when I stayed with him for about 9 months, and the baby would cry. And he would always say, Vungi, the baby's crying, come and feed the baby. And I'll sit with him and I'll breastfeed feed even in his presence. And he normalized that and he encouraged that. So I think from, sorry, I'm sort of becoming a bit tearful, but from men perspective, the culture and the home environment where I came from really supported that. And I am very much aware that that's one of the things that gave me that strength, the courage, the support system. My mom, who's also here with me today, looking after the girls, she is a mom of 5 and she breastfed all of us. And she would always come when we give birth to make sure that we learn, we're supported, and that we just know what to do. There are many different types of support system. Dr. Natalie has already highlighted the theme for this year, because it's being acknowledged that one of the challenges and the reasons why women are struggling to breastfeed at the moment is the lack of support. Motherhood is not an individual journey. It's not a lone journey. It's something that it takes a village. It takes a village, not just to raise a child, but to support a breastfeeding mother and to raise healthy children. So if you remember anything from me, if you're an auntie, sister, a doctor, a healthcare professional, whatever capacity that you are, just remember you can be a support system for someone, which is why the theme for this year in this last breastfeeding week has been around encouraging support. So I just wanted to give us that background, and I'm just going to bring up my presentation so that we can crack on. Just as a show of hands in the chat, and maybe Dr. Natalie can help with this while I share my screen. Just type in yes if you are a mom and you have breastfed, and maybe you can just mention how many babies you've breastfed. And also men that are on the group, thank you. We want to get you involved. Do share with us if you're a dad, uncle, how many nephews, how many babies you have supported to ensure that they are breastfed. Right, so I'm bringing my talk on. Please let me know if you can see it.
We can see it.
Thank you. That's great. We'll look at the polls later on, hopefully, so keep typing in the chat so that we can know how many people are supporting us. I put that small little picture at the bottom right. Just bear with me. Good morning, David. I'm busy. I'll be with you shortly. Okay. Right. Sorry about that. So I put that small little picture at the bottom right because motherhood, so many things come to our minds when we talk of motherhood. For me, I think motherhood is not just biological. And I know we're talking about breastfeeding, and I know we're talking mainly to encourage women who have carried a baby in the womb and have given birth, whichever way, and now are breastfeeding, and we want to understand the dynamics and all the joys and challenges around that. However, I think it's worth for a few seconds just pausing to reflect that motherhood is more than biological motherhood. A shout out to our adopted mothers, a shout out, whatever you believe, whatever, wherever your perspective or worldview you're coming from. We also have mothers, from atypical family setups. We've got now transgender women who are looking after children, and And motherhood, for me, when I think of motherhood, it speaks of nurturing. It speaks of raising children. It speaks of being able to carry children, not just physically, but metaphorically, being able to walk along a journey with someone, with a child, as they grow, and providing them with all the nourishment, not just physical, spiritual, mental nourishment, to ensure that they grow and they realize their fullest potential. So we may have a lot of mothers as well who may not have breastfed for a number of reasons. All of this encompasses motherhood. And I just want us to be mindful of that as we go through this talk. Breastfeeding, especially, it's such a beautiful experience. It's the oldest way to feed babies that we know of. It's the healthiest way that we know of. It's the safest way that we know of. And we'll look on to more advantages of breastfeeding as we move on. Now, I just added this picture for us to have a visual picture for us who may not be in the medical field, have never seen perhaps the inside of a breast or understand the anatomy. But the breast is such a beautiful, beautiful organ, and it's made up of different aspects, mainly fatty tissue covered in different structures, fascias, and it's got a lot of ducts, which is where the breast lobules, which is where the milk is produced, coordinated in the body by a number of hormones all over the body that are connected to the brain and different parts of the body. So I just thought to give that a brief sort of anatomical background so that we know what we are talking about. Natalie has already talked about prioritizing breastfeeding, creating sustainable support systems. So support systems can mean different things to different people. The world as it is changing, as we know. We used to live in very tribal communities, close, where you had lots of help. I still see some of that where I come from in Zimbabwe, especially in the villages. But we know due to urbanization, people are migrating, people are moving on to different countries, and people are becoming more isolated sometimes, and the structure of the support is changing. In the UK, we're privileged to have very good support structures in the community through the midwife, health visitor teams, community teams, and also hospital teams that work with the specialist doctors to support women as they are preparing to breastfeed, and also when they give birth, or in pregnancy, as they're preparing, when they give birth, and also for following up women. As a GP, I tend to have most contact with breastfeeding women at 6 to 8 weeks check, to see how they're getting on, how they're feeding their baby, to encourage them, identify any problems, and if there are some problems that the health visitors in the community cannot address, or the community midwives, then I can refer them on to or link them on to other community services or other specialist support. So it's important that we also look at the wider support systems, which is, for example, when women go to work. One of the reasons that was identified as a challenge in women breastfeeding is the fact that when women go to work, sometimes the hours, the lifestyle, sometimes even the work environment, for example, not having enough space, it's something that I faced in my workplace, not having enough room, not having enough resources, for example, fridges to store your milk if you're expressing or you're breastfeeding, not having even enough breaks to say that, you need to breastfeed, so maybe you need a 15-minute break in addition to your normal break for your well-being, due to pressures of work. These are some of the things that are challenges in our workplace and environment, and the government and the community and all of us should be giving feedback for organizations that we engage in to sort of think in terms of equality and making reasonable adjustments for women, especially who want to breastfeed after they have come back from maternity. It is a generational investment, and it's everyone's business. Whilst we say breastfeeding is cheap because it's a natural source, it's actually it gives the biggest investment because we know that it's linked to the best outcomes in terms of health, development, mentally, physically for the children. We know that we'll get on to talk more about the advantages of breastfeeding, but essentially it's the first vaccine. It's the oldest vaccine that we know in humankind because we know the benefits of building the immune system in those first few weeks, especially. That sets children up to be protected from a whole lot of, especially infections in the first year of life, where the mortality or the rate of children being at risk of dying is the greatest. It's the most balanced meal, and, it changes naturally. And despite us knowing all these advantages, it's been found, however, that 48%, less than half of infants under 6 months are actually still exclusively breastfed. And this is below the World Health Assembly target of about 60%. The health recommendation is that exclusively babies should be breastfed, all things going well, up to 6 months. When we look on a global scale, about a fifth of countries as well include infant and young child feeding training for doctors and nurses who care for new mothers. It's been found that it's inadequate, that training for the people who support women is not enough. And there are many reasons why this could be the case, but maybe this may not cover so much of our talk today, but really speaking to those who make policies and who work in government. If that's you, please go and look more into that. Now, I just put this slide. It's a busy slide. I underlined it. I blocked it because I just thought, it's worth us as well just pausing to think, if this is the first vaccine known to humankind, if this is the best that we know, what happened? Why have we got such low rates of breastfeeding in our nations? And we know that it's changing as well, even in developing countries where people normally wouldn't afford formula, therefore would just feed the baby or, resort to other things. There's a number of things, but I think at the bottom of it, it's some of the historical, social, political key events that have happened in different ages. Mainly, slavery, colonization, and we're looking here especially at the history of Black women. It's been found that there's been a stigma that sort of came, especially with the use of wet nurses. I don't know if you're all familiar, but during slavery, it's understood, and they've done comprehensive studies in America, for example, Black women were used by other races to breastfeed their children. So this was associated with the loss of autonomy. It was associated with sort of corporate abuse, loss of control, and a lot of women began to loathe that experience. And obviously we've got the sexualization of Black bodies. You don't have to look far. You turn on the TV, you go on YouTube, the female body has been sexualized so much, and also marketized, and also so publicly, you in the UK, for example, we talk of the page 2, is it page 3 of the Sun? You open it and the first thing you see is a woman with her breast, and that's meant to sell and to please men. And that's changed how generations, that background that I had, I think from a conservative culture, it's changed the Western world and in general how breastfeeding is viewed. So not just men marketizing, but also some women, and also women then feeling their breasts are more sexual than they are nutritional or for nurturing children. There are obviously health inequalities because of economic disparities that are there between different races for a number of reasons. And those socioeconomic challenges as well, they impact. If you have to go back to work early because you need the money, it means probably the headspace, the time to be able to breastfeed is less. So the pressure to stop may be more for a lot of women. And I have had the privilege in the UK, we've got quite generous maternity provisions. A woman can take leave up to a year. And I took all the year, as much as I could, so that I could give my children that best start. And we see how it makes a difference, because when the pressures are on, either because of education or anything else that we need to chase, most women find themselves stopping breastfeeding earlier than they would have liked to. And then there's lack of resources, which is linked to lack of support that I spoke about earlier. But resources, again, talking about lack of access to things like lactation consultants, breastfeeding support groups, and that can hinder not just initiation, but continuation of breastfeeding amongst Black women. In my twin pregnancy, it was like a first time breastfeeding experience for me. And I'm so thankful that I had a breastfeeding consultant who linked me to organizations that I wasn't even aware of. Things like support organizations that provide loaning equipment, for example, if you need breastfeeding tools and things like that. All that information, as a doctor, I didn't know about it, let alone someone who's not in the health field or in the system to be able to understand. So this is the first thing that I want us to take away. There's lots of help available. If you're unsure, ask someone, look up a website, and I've got some links at the end for women to take away and have a look at. In addition to, I've spoken about, some of the challenges. This is a picture of a wet nurse that I've spoken about. And I think over time, the lack of positive images as well of Black women breastfeeding has contributed to those racial disparities as well. I just put a note there that, this may not necessarily be the case, like I mentioned, in other cultures, and I can speak for the Zimbabwean culture. You have other positive things that have happened over the years. My mom was a nurse and a midwife, and she tells me of stories where older women would look after orphans, for example, when their parents or their mom died, either in childbirth or afterwards, and they still needed breastfeeding. They would just get what we call gogos, or grandmothers, women who have nursed before, to actually care for these children. And it was a known thing. Sometimes they would just help them with medication to stimulate breastfeeding, but it was a celebrated thing. So it just goes to show that different places and the cultures that are celebrated and nurtured can impact on the rates of breastfeeding and on the way that women view breastfeeding as well. So we've already touched on advantages of breastfeeding. It's more than nutrition. It helps everybody. Breastfeeding is for bonding. We know there's been studies done that between mother and baby, it encourages the development of emotional intelligence, brain development, through the physical act of breastfeeding, skin contact, and also physiologically, the release of hormones that happen when women are breastfeeding. It's also shown the benefit, not just between mother and baby, but to the support system around the woman, the husband, when they hold the baby and have skin-to-skin contact, when they're able to, for example, also give breast milk that's expressed by the mother, and also children getting involved. Everybody wins in the family unit or in whatever social circumstances a breastfeeding mother find themselves in. We've talked about immunity and reducing mortality through reducing infections, but there's also even chronic diseases that we're struggling with now: obesity, allergies, asthma, diabetes. All these things have been shown to be reduced in people who were breastfed in their early life. So there's maternal benefits, and there's also child benefits or infant benefits. I put a note there as well for sudden infant syndrome, reducing the rates of sudden infant syndrome. That's quite an important point to take note. And when we have time, we'll look at, someone asked a question as I was preparing for this, whether it's safe to breastfeed while sleeping, for example. But breastfeeding in general reduces this risk. So women as well have got a benefit in reducing things like breast, ovarian cancer, weight management, recovery from childbirth itself. We know that hormones are released, which help for things to come back together, for the uterus to contract again if you're breastfeeding. Mental health, because of the release of the good chemicals. And obviously the wider benefits. I mean, this is not a comprehensive list, but we talk of cost effectiveness. Breastfeeding is much cheaper. All a woman needs to do is really to look after themselves, getting good balanced nutrition, regular meals, plenty of water. Minimum, I used to go through sort of 4 to 6 liters when I was breastfeeding the twins. And I saw the benefit of how that increases the milk production. By around 4-6 months, I was expressing 1 to 1.5 liters of milk each day. And I was just amazed because I had never experienced anything like that. But basic, looking after oneself in the long run is cost effective. As you would appreciate, most women would know, formula, which is the other alternative, is very expensive. One tin that goes through 1 or 2 weeks, I think costs something like 10 to 15 pounds. Is that correct? So breastfeeding has got a lot of advantages. Usually no too much equipment to deal with. And even when you use it, breast milk itself has got chemicals that fight against infection, and it's readily available. Now, I'm going to whiz through this because this is just talking about the Breastfeeding Week, which was organized by the World Alliance for Breastfeeding Action that Natalie has introduced to us. And that is the summary of the recommendations that they are making. It's a busy slide, but you can Google it and have a look at what's happening on a wider scale in our society to try and support women breastfeeding. So at this point, I want to pause because we have some wonderful people who have joined us today. I hope they have managed to join in. In thinking about the challenges of breastfeeding, I thought it would be a good idea to hear from some women who have experienced the joys and the challenges, and they'll just share with us their experience with one example of a challenge that they've experienced and how they've overcome it. So over to you, Dr. Natalie. I don't know if our guests have managed to join.
Brilliant. Thank you, Dr. Von. Fantastic presentation. And also thank you for sharing your own personal experience with us as well. I think that's really powerful. So we have Laswana on the call. I'm hoping that she is still here.
I am.
Excellent. Hi, Laswana. Very welcome. So Laswana is going to be talking to us about her experience of breastfeeding while living with HIV. So Laswana, I have some questions to ask you, but it would be great for you to just tell us a little bit about yourself and your experiences.
Good morning, everyone. I am Liswana. I'm a British-born Caribbean woman who has been living with HIV for nearly a quarter of a century. I know I don't look it, but I have been. I found out that I was living with HIV with my second pregnancy. I was lucky enough to breastfeed my first child. I had a natural birth. I breastfed. I did all the normal things that you expect to do when you have a pregnancy. I was raised in a family where my aunties were having kids like rabbits, and they would all breastfeed anywhere and everywhere whenever their child was hungry. And I saw it as a norm, and I knew that I would breastfeed when I had my children. So my son was breastfed. Um, It was a wonderful experience, sometimes painful. There are things that happen, but I was thankful for that. And hopefully, because he's nice and healthy at 28, um, he got the benefits of that. With my second pregnancy, I obviously found out that I was HIV positive. And the advice then was not to breastfeed. I was so taken aback. It was something that I had to be talked through because I knew the benefits of breastfeeding my first child. So I felt that I was going to not give my child everything and be able to bond with her. Luckily enough, my cousin was also pregnant at the same time and she wet nursed for me. So my daughter was breastfed, but just not by me. Moving on 20 years later, I was pregnant again, a surprise pregnancy. And in the 20 years, I have educated myself and others on how to live well with HIV, and especially women when it comes to maternity. I make sure that I have all the knowledge and facts so that I'm empowered and can empower other women. So when I found that I was pregnant, I was ready to go through the process of discussing how my birthing plan would be. And because I have in all my pregnancies, it's called HC something. I get nauseous and I cannot eat or drink. I had a blip with my viral load. And when you're living with HIV, your aim is to be undetectable and untransmittable. And I had been until I was pregnant. So my midwife and consultant sat in an MDT meeting and decided that I would not be able to have a water birth or to breastfeed. And when they made that decision for me. So when they informed me about this, I was taken aback, took a deep breath, and asked for all the people that were present in the MDT meeting to state their case for why they believe I shouldn't be able to breastfeed. So 2 weeks later, we had my next appointment and they all were present. They even upgraded and made sure that the heads of each department was there. And we discussed why I was not going to be able to breastfeed. And because, like I said, in the 20 years, I'd made sure that I was up to date with all the facts and figures. I can spell percentages and from different countries when it comes to anything to do with maternity and women living with HIV. So I let them discuss everything in front of me. And then I told them very kindly that we are going to go with option B, which will be for them to monitor me through my pregnancy and that I will be breastfeeding. And I know that it is a right and they are there to support my decision to breastfeed. And I was able to breastfeed. I gave birth to my beautiful daughter and I was able to breastfeed for 6 months, which is the recommendation. It's a process of I have to exclusively breastfeed. And that means that I am not allowed to give the baby water or any food. And that meant all my family members and friends had to be informed that do not get tempted to put something in my child's mouth because that would stop me being able to breastfeed. I have a very, very good network of peer support, and my peer sisters came together to make sure that I had an amazing supply of milk for my daughter. I was given culturally appropriate methods to make sure that I had a good milk supply. I would drink mullet in the morning as I was meant to have it as porridge, but I didn't like it, so I'd drink it as like a cup of tea. And this would make my milk come in quicker and thicker and nice for my child. She would get breastfed like anywhere at any time. I would not allow someone to tell me, "I'll put that away." There are lovely tools to cover yourself and to make it anyone else who feels uncomfortable and to cover yourself and your child and for privacy when you're out and about and breastfeeding. I want to say thank you to my healthcare team for making sure that I did get to breastfeed. And my daughter appreciated the fact that she got to bond with me. I was also able to comp, so I would share the feeding schedule with my partner. He was able to do this for first 5 weeks of her life. Unfortunately, he had an illness and died, so he is no longer with us. But it was nice that he could do the night feeds because I had that, he used to call it liquid gold to give to our child. It's something that I think every woman should be given the opportunity to do with support and to be educated about while they are pregnant. Thank you for giving me this platform to discuss my journey, and I hope someone takes something from this. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you,
Wow, that is
Liswana.
such a powerful experience and story. Thank you so much for sharing. I was just looking at the current guidance on breastfeeding and HIV, and we have made leaps and bounds from at one point being all women, as soon as they are told they're HIV positive, told not to breastfeed as you experienced. And now actually the recommendation, yes, is that 6 months exclusive, just like anybody else. They're even encouraged to breastfeed up to a year because of that risk of mortality. And also even beyond up to 2 years and beyond for as long as you want. This is because there's been such a great development and advancement in ARVs, which are the antiretroviral drug treatments, which essentially have the ability to make the virus undetectable in your body. It's English. Therefore, the risk of transmitting it to the baby is very low. I'm so pleased that you are able to share with us. Now, in a moment, I'll let Natalie our second speaker speak from a lived experience. But before she does that, I have got a 2-minute video, max, it's probably 1.5, to share with you because, we're just talking about how every woman needs to be taught how to breastfeed. It's actually a natural experience, yes, but sometimes it doesn't always come easy especially when it's your first time. And most problems that women face are because of getting the hang of things in that beginning stage. When you're a second mom, it's different because you've done it before. When you're a third mom, it's different. But that first time, I just want to play this video so that we all learn when we're talking of breastfeeding, how do you actually do it? And it's a very quick video. Can you see that? Yes?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, good.
Bring the baby's nose directly opposite the nipple. Let his head tip back a little so his top lip can brush against your nipple. This should make him open his mouth. When his mouth is wide open, bring him quickly to the breast with his head back and chin leading. The baby can then take a large mouthful of breast, not just the nipple. The breast will be drawn deep into his mouth, so your nipple will go all the way back to the soft part of his mouth and you won't get sore. So, once your baby's head has tipped back, your nipple will brush his top lip. Wait for the wide gape, then bring your baby quickly to the breast, chin leading. In this position, feeding will be comfortable and your baby will be able to take all the milk he needs.
So long as you've got your position and attachment right, it should be like that. It should be nice and relaxed and enjoyable.
For Angela, things have been easier. She's back home with baby Cameron and breastfeeding is still going well.
Brilliant. That's it. Over to you, Dr. Natalie. I don't know if Shamiso is on. So I shared that. As you can see, it looks incredibly easy, doesn't it? But sometimes it takes a little bit, to get the hang of it and for baby to get the hang of it. And I want to mention a particular thanks to one of my friends who actually messaged me when I invited her to this talk. And she said, Vaughn, this is a subject close to my heart because my baby had tongue tie. So there's a number of reasons. also medical, that other babies may find it difficult to breastfeed. So if a baby has got tongue tie, it means that they are not able to do that normal suckling and to latch on properly onto the breast. That can cause a lot of pain and discomfort for the mom, and it also means baby's not happy, not feeding well, therefore not having enough nutrition. So we will touch on other problems, but I want Shami is my sister, and she's a mother of two, and she's currently breastfeeding a 4-month-old baby. Congratulations, Shami. And she's exclusively breastfeeding. She had quite a challenging experience in her after her first pregnancy and birth and breastfeeding experience. So if Shami, you're on, can you bring up your camera, and then you can share with us and our viewers your experience and how you overcame the challenges.
Dr. Von, small question. Is it Shami's?
Hello, can you hear me, everyone?
Yes,
Yeah.
we can hear you.
That's fine. Oh, hi, everyone. Thank you for having me today. I thought I'll just come in and share a little bit of my experience with breastfeeding. As Vaughn has said, my sister, she said, I've got 2 children, and I had a bit of a challenge with the first child. I just assumed, by the way, I've got 3 sisters, and 2 of them are married, and they managed to breastfeed fine with no issue. And I just assumed it was going to be the same with me as well. It's going to be the same with me as well. Just, everything was going to flow well. However, 3 days, is it the second day of giving birth, I discovered that my daughter had jaundice. So she needed to have the light treatment. So when she was put under the light, the doctors said, I need to ensure that we maximize her time in the light. So therefore, I had to give her a bottle. So at that time, being a first-time mom, I didn't really understand that I do have rights to request certain things, like, can I make sure I breastfeed every 3 hours or every 4 hours? I just assumed, whatever their recommendation is, I just run with it. So, because I was also so eager to make sure that she recovers quickly and then I can get out of the hospital quickly as well, I just followed what they said, and I just maximized the time under the light, and we kept on giving a bottle. Well, so on day 5, when she recovered so well and we were discharged from the hospital, my first struggle was actually to breastfeed her. She just refused to come to the nipple. She was so used to the bottle, the flow of the bottle, the texture, I think the feeling of the bottle in her mouth. And I was devastated. I just thought, oh my goodness, this is what I'm supposed to do. I'm on maternity to breastfeed this child. What's going on? So I struggled with that. And then on day 6, we had a midwife come to our house, and then they weighed my daughter, and they realized that she'd lost too much weight, as they expected, because I think there's a threshold where I think the child is allowed to lose weight, maybe up to like 9% to 10%, but she had lost 14%. And then they said, no, quickly, you need to go back to the hospital. And they put us on a feeding plan. And what that meant was I needed to supplement with formula. Oh my goodness. Everything that I grew up believing just went out of the window. I'm thinking, I'm a failure. I can't feed my baby. No one, where I come from, no one really talked a lot about formula. Or perhaps it's just because when I was growing up in Zimbabwe, I never saw anyone really doing formula. So I didn't know much about it. So yeah, I was a bit stressed, I think. But good thing is I had a lot of people within the medical sort of field encouraging me that I can develop my flow. I can encourage myself to continue feeding, keep bringing the baby, give the baby an opportunity to come to the breast, and then give the formula as a top up. So I just persevered with that, and I kept on. I was pumping one. And in terms of the nipple confusion or flow confusion for the baby, a midwife told me about nipple shield, which was a lifesaver. I didn't even know anything about that. So what I did is I went for a hospital visit, a checkup, and I explained that my daughter didn't want to come to the breast anymore. I'm just purely expressing. And she said, not a problem. You can buy nipple shield. You can put it on your nipple and the baby comes and it just imitates the bottle, and then the baby will start feeding from the breast. And I thought, right away, we'll go and buy it. So we bought it, and literally from the word go, she started feeding from the breast. It was amazing. And then a year and a half after using the nipple shield, I started removing the nipple shield, and then she continued breastfeeding. So it was such a win. But yeah, it required a change of mindset, perseverance, determination just to keep going. Yeah, and now and also I thought maybe my body is not built for breastfeeding exclusively, but as Vaughn said, I'm on second baby, and baby's exclusively breastfeeding. Baby also had jaundice and went under the light, and I just told the doctors, I need to breastfeed baby every 3 hourly. And I was doing that. And then the milk came in on time. And then I just continued breastfeeding. So yeah, so be encouraged that you can do it. So yeah, thank you for having me. You can see I've got baby here. But thank you very much.
Absolutely. Oh, thank you, Shami. I love that. You can do it. There are challenges, and sometimes it's because we don't have the conversations. But actually, if you speak to every woman, you will learn that there's a story that they have. My first challenge for me was dealing with thrush, which is another problem that can cause sore nipples. And a lot of people were not aware because sometimes it's not easy to diagnose. And some healthcare professionals are actually not good as well or equipped in identifying it and treating it promptly. So once we figured out that I had thrush, I was given some antifungal for myself and also some antifungal for the baby. And when it was very sore, I also temporarily expressed, and we found a way to get around this. So I'm really appreciative of this. Now, I know that we have got a number of questions and it's almost time now, so I'm mindful, but I wanted to just go back to our presentation and share with you some of a few top tips as well, in addition to what the ladies have already spoken about. Before I forget, someone in the chat has kindly mentioned about nevirapine. Dr. Liswana, I don't know, do you want to say a mention? Because I think it's quite important and we should just give it a few seconds to mention. Do you want to tell our ladies about nevirapine?
Okay, when you give birth, you're with my first child, she had to be on antivirals for 6 weeks. With my second child, it was only 2 weeks. And it comes in a different form. My first child, it was a big tub, and I had to keep it in the fridge and spoon feed it to her. And my second child, it come in a little ready-made syringe that I just pushed into her mouth. My first child hated it, so it was a struggle to give it to her. The second child loved it. She loved how sweet it was and how nice it was. But yeah, the everything is reducing for giving the baby's medication. It's just making sure that mum's okay. I did have, I'll talk about it on the questions.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you so much. So it is an antiviral that's used in conjunction with other antivirals to again reduce the risk of mother to child, or as it is called, vertical transmission of HIV. So thank you for that mention. So just a number of top tips, and feel free to add some in the chat as well if you've got a top tip. And I'll ask Dr. Natalie to keep an eye on that so that we can just read them at the end. So after each feed, let your nipples dry before getting dressed. This is very important. As you know, moisture can increase, especially the risk of fungus growing, bacteria growing, and the risk of getting infected. So that's very important. I got breast pads always get good breast pads, and you can get different bras as well, especially cotton ones are good because they absorb the moisture, so that you can use them after every feed and change them to, again, reduce the risk of infection. Try not to shorten feeds if possible. It may not necessarily ease the pain, but also it may reduce the milk supply. And I think this point really is linked to that support system, because sometimes, especially in those first, I would say first week or first 2 weeks, it can be quite challenging to get the hang of it. And it's important, because if babies need more time on the breast, and they will sometimes require to feed much more frequently, that's because the actual stimulation, the feeding action of the baby is what increases the milk production. So when we get to the questions, we'll talk about another point about milk supply. But you'll find that in the first few days, the milk supply actually is not a lot, but it is sufficient for the baby. The body is designed in such a way that as a woman lets the baby feed more and more, that feeding will then determine how the body adjusts and supplies the milk. And then you usually have a good letdown, what's called a letdown, where the milk then comes in floods around day 5 to day 7. So if you're at day 2 and you're frustrated and you give up, you might not be able to see that big letdown of milk. So it's very important not to shorten the feeds. If you need to look after another baby, do other house chores, do other things which make you think, oh, I need to shorten this feed, ask for help. I know this is very simple, but ask for help. Make use of the family around you. Make use of church, mosque, whatever community is around you. Accept help with your meals so that you can focus on that breastfeeding in those first few weeks. What women usually find is after a few weeks to 2 months, 3 months, babies actually feed for shorter amounts of time and sometimes even less frequently. So it's important to get that beginning right. Avoid using soap. This can dry out your skin. You need to look after yourself. We've talked about cotton and avoiding sort of wired bras to encourage circulation. And I know that says avoid nipple shoes, but that's really speaking to people who don't have a problem. As Shami, my sister, has shared her experience, in some instances where baby wants that feel of the bottle, they can actually be really a lifesaver. So over to you, Dr. Natalie. It's time for questions. We might not be able to go through all of them because obviously I think it is it 5 minutes to? How are we doing the time? Yes, about 5 minutes to. I've got a whole list of questions that I had put there, and there's a second slide there as well about questions. But I don't want to just go through them randomly. Maybe it is a good idea for us to get the questions from our audience and maybe address those first. And if you're interested, I'm happy for you to look at this presentation later. There is plenty of information on the NHS website for patients, including links to other organizations that are helpful. And I put here medicines in pregnancy. It's a very good source for women who may have not just HIV, but other conditions, be it diabetes, be it cancer. You're going through treatment and you're wondering, oh, is it safe for me to breastfeed my baby? Some women might have mental health problems, suffering from anxiety, depression, taking what we call psychotropic medications. We know that there's a lot of safe medications, some that are called SSRIs, for example, that are proven to be safe. And if you're not sure, don't stop your medication by yourself. Don't suffer in silence and worry. seek help. Speak to your midwife, speak to your health visitor, speak to your GP as a last resort. But do speak, because they will point you in the right direction, and they'll point you to reliable information to allay your fears about anything that might happen. And I just put that statement there to say no to breast shaming. We don't have enough time for me to
You've gone on to mute, Dr. Von. We can't hear you anymore. No, we can't, Dr. Von, we can't hear you at the moment. You're on mute. There we go.
Apologies. I thought that was a soft cue for me to stop talking. But I was just sort of finishing on that point. No, let's say no to breast shaming. And lastly, I want to thank you by giving you a visual picture of my support system in those critical first 6 months where I managed to exclusively breastfeed my babies. That's my husband, Tafadzwa, Dr. Tafadzwa Shuro, and my on his left, or his left, in blue, that's my mother-in-law, his mom, who breastfed him, and that's my mom on my right who breasts me, and those are the girls and our boys. And everybody has been part of my support system, and they've helped me to make this a success. So I really wish you all the best as well, if you're listening, to really look for your support system and reach out for support so that you can breastfeed effectively. Over to you, Dr. Natalie, so we can get some
Thank
questions. I don't know
you.
if we've got one or two.
We're going to squeeze in some questions. Thank you, Dr. Von and Laswana and Shami, for sharing your stories this morning. Now, you've somewhat addressed one of the questions actually that we had in the chat, which was, what are your thoughts on breastfeeding and whether it can still be continued if you need to be prescribed antidepressants for postpartum depression? Do you have anything to add to what you've already said?
Not really, except they are safe medication, and it's absolutely safe to breastfeed when you're taking psychotropic medications. Do speak to there's a perinatal, I guess what I can add is there's a perinatal mental health team that's dedicated to supporting women in the first 12 months after they give birth. If your GP has not referred you, please insist on being referred, because they're experienced, they've got more time, and they can help you navigate and connect you to other supporting systems to make sure that nothing hinders your journey as you breastfeed your child, even if you're on medication as well.
Thank you. Okay, we've got a good tip in here from Laswana. Silver nipple shields reduce cracked nipples. So good for everyone to take on board.
Wonderful.
And we've got some information on nevirapine shared by Stephanie. So thank you very much, Stephanie, for sharing that information. We've got about a minute, so I just want to see if...
Sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
I don't know if you saw some messages I sent you on Zoom, but there's been questions online and comments, which I shared.
No, thank you. Okay. Oh, gosh. Okay, sorry. Let's pick out some of these questions. We've asked a couple of them. Someone says, I think my mum wants me to overfeed my newborn. My mum says every 2 hours, but the midwife says 4.
Right. That is a very good question. One of the questions that I had on my slide was, should I be creating a routine for my baby to breastfeed? The general recommendation is that breastfeeding should be baby-led. That is the biggest point. Because guess what? Babies know themselves well. They know what they need. There is another picture that you might have seen briefly of a woman who's wearing a hijab in heat and worried about dehydration. For example, if the weather changes and it's too hot and baby's dehydrated, babies know how often to increase their feeding, and also how to feed such that they get the type of milk that hydrates them, rather than just sort of feeding them in terms of nutrition. So it's very important to be baby-led. So I don't want to be crude and say, don't listen to mom. But you can gently say, I think it's important, especially in that first 6 months, for us to follow what the baby needs. If baby is unwell as well, if they want to feed, let them feed. In general, in the first sort of few weeks, they do say babies might want to feed 2 to 3 hours, but then that time increases. So it's about being adaptable. It's about being flexible. It's about being responsive, aware, and paying attention to what your baby needs. The other thing that's important is babies crying, and this is a big thing, especially in our African communities, I know. When babies cry, it's not just because they want to feed. A baby crying doesn't mean they need milk all the time. Sometimes babies are too hot. Sometimes they've got a wet nappy. Sometimes they want to burp. Sometimes they want to do all sorts of things. So it's also good to do that. Have a checklist in your mind before you put the baby on the boob, especially if you know that you've just fed them 30 minutes ago and then they start crying. Think, okay, is the temperature okay for them? Are they wearing something comfortable? Is their nappy dry? And sort of go through things like that. And then if everything is okay, you offer the breast again, and then you see what happens. And when babies have finished feeding, they will usually also tell you that they finished feeding. So in general, while it would be nice for me to say feed every 4 hours, feed every 3 hours, the truth is breast milk adapts and the schedule for the baby changes depending on the situation, the age of the baby. So just follow their lead. And if you notice that the baby is giving you a pattern, take note of it and then allow that to guide you for your support system. For example, my husband wanted to help me find some sleep and rest. So when I've breastfed, I would know that baby wakes up for a feed at this time, that time. When it happened, other people could step in and feed the baby for me while I get much needed sleep as well, which improves milk production as well. And I didn't mention, but the other thing that I noticed, especially with my twin pregnancy, exercise. At least 30 minutes of a brisk walk exercising actually is good, not only in terms of increasing your endorphins, all the good chemicals that go into the breast, help the baby to sleep and help the baby to calm down, but also it's good for milk production, blood flow, and keeping a mom generally fit, not just physically, but also mentally, that mental well-being for it to come after childbirth.
Thank you. Okay, so we have been given permission to extend for just a few minutes. I've got 3 questions here from people who have been watching. I think if you're okay for me to ask these 3 questions and then for you to just give us the answers and then we'll wrap up, if that sounds okay. Brilliant. Okay. So the first one is, my auntie been shaming me for breastfeeding past 12 months. How do I respond? That's one. The second one, I survived breast cancer. One side produces almost no milk. How can I still breastfeed safely? And the third question is, I had my baby at 40 in the 90s. I think it was a high-risk pregnancy. This says I couldn't breastfeed, but I didn't pressure myself. Well, this isn't actually a question, it's just a comment. So just happy I had her and she's a healthy woman. So that is fantastic to know. And thank you for sharing that. So just those 2 questions about shaming and about breastfeeding safely, having survived breast cancer, and one side producing almost no milk.
Right. Okay. So with the first point, thank you for sharing that. This is such a common thing. And I think breastfeeding sometimes evokes a lot of emotion in a lot of women for different reasons, either because they had a difficult journey breastfeeding their own children, or because they couldn't have their own children, or again, because of all those cultural and societal factors like sexualization, like the shame, the stigma that came from wet nursing historically. There's a number of reasons why people would do that. But I think the first thing is to realize when someone makes a comment like that, it's really not about you. It's about them dealing with whatever they're dealing with, including their lack of knowledge and their lack of information. So I think just stopping to bear that in mind helps that second, so that you don't assimilate their insecurities or their own problems into making it your problem. That's the first thing to say. We need to develop confidence to say, okay, well, thank you, Auntie, for sharing that, but can you tell me more why you think that? Exploring where they are coming from will not only make sure that you win the argument, but it also means you win the person. You have a conversation in the way that helps them to feel valued and to feel that you actually take on board what they're saying and you value the heart, usually, in which they intend. With their limited knowledge, they mean well. And it's just important to acknowledge that. That's what I would say. The next thing is about having good information at hand. The World Health Organization, there's studies that have been done, for example, and the World Health Organization recommends women to breastfeed for as long as they can, as long as the baby can, as long as the mom can, especially up to 2 years. So that's the first thing to do, just getting that little bit of information, reliable sources, and sharing with them. Auntie, actually, did you know they've done some research and this is what they now recommend? The other thing, if you remember when we were talking about the advantages of breastfeeding, all the health benefits are time related as well. The longer you breastfeed, the more the benefits. So that's one thing to say. The second point, I'll now move on to the next question. I'm mindful of our time. Breastfeeding through one breast is absolutely fine. There's also a lot of women who've got both breasts, but their milk, just one breast is better than the other, or the baby prefers one breast and feeds from it more than the other. It's absolutely fine. What you may also make use of is using milk expression, either using equipment, a breast pump, whether it's manual or electric, or even manual expression. During my twin pregnancy, I manually expressed. So you can use that to get milk from the other breast that's not producing milk as much as the other one, or also balance it that way so that you can make use of all the available supply that you have. I hope that's useful because I'm feeling pressured because of the time. So really trying to summarize and be succinct. But thank you for those questions. They're really useful in terms of thinking about the wider issues that may occur in breastfeeding.
That was brilliant. Thank you, Dr. Von. And we're so sorry that we don't have time opportunity to spend a bit more time on those. We have run out of time this morning, unfortunately, but that was a great session. Thank you very much to Dr. Von, to Liswana, and to Shami, all of you, for sharing your experiences and so much knowledge. Thank you to everyone for joining, and thank you to all of the fantastic questions we've had as well. I will now hand you over to the Khan team and hope to see you at a future health hour. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, women, and keep breastfeeding.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Natalie, for being an amazing host as well. Thank you, everyone that has spoken. Thank you, Dr. Vaughn. Thank you, Lishwana, for sharing your story. That was truly brave and inspiring. Thank you, Charmaine, as well, for sharing your experience as a first-time mom. I mean, everyone experienced today brought life to the topic. So thank you so much for raising awareness of the advantage of breastfeeding for the child. It's beautiful to hear from fellow women as well that have had experience. So thank you so much. It ties perfectly to the theme of this year to show that we all need that support system. That's very, very important support system. So thank you so much, everyone that has logged in today and has stayed to this time. So before we wrap up, I would kindly just share my screen just a few moments. Okay, hopefully you can see my screen now. Yeah, so next, you can see my screen, yeah. Okay. So next week we're here again for our men's health. So next week we expect to see us here again for our men's health. We're talking about men's health outcome, another very important topic in our community. And we'll be having our Dr. Hector Goma, tell us about what sort of health checks that our men should not miss, and how to spot the warning signs, and how to take charge of our health basically. And also we'll be having our Black History Month Gala. Our nominations are ongoing at the moment. We at CAN, we like to celebrate our own people that are making great impact in our community. And we want to do this at our gala. So please, nominations are up. Please sign up for those that are, there are different categories available, public sector, private sector, and all of that. The link will be shared in the chat box for you to put in your nominations. It's still open to the 20th of August. So please put in your nominations. We want to shout about the great impact they are having in our community as well. Still on the gala, we have our nights of fun and entertainment and also celebration where we also give out these awards. So we have our gala coming up on the 11th of October at the Concord Conference Center here in Greater Manchester. So we look forward to seeing you. Tickets are available. Please scan the code, invite your friends, invite your family. It's going to be a night of glamour as always. And we also have here our call and raising awareness for blood donors from our communities, the Black community. We know that genetics and our DNA play a very important role when it comes to blood donation. And we're seeking for you, as you could be a perfect match. So please sign up to donate blood and register today. You can scan the QR code. If there's a link to be shared on the chat box. Also, we know we are in the summer, yeah, we're going out for holidays and the likes. So we want to make sure that we are packing the relevant things that needs to be packed. So one of them is the CO alarm, right? It can save you the risks of any carbon monoxide poisoning wherever you might be, whether camping, staying in a hotel or a resort. Please pack one with you. We also have if you want to get to know more about it, please contact our team and you'll be given one and also share more information on that. Okay, so yeah, lastly, we have our ever ready counseling service. We have professional counseling service for you 7 days a week, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Whether you need support with whatever you're going through, you need to talk to someone, or you just need a listening ear, we are always here ready to help. So you see there our counseling details on the screen. You can scan our code as well and get started and connect with us. You don't have to face it alone. We are here to listen to you and support you as much as possible. Also, this session is recorded on YouTube, so please you can go back to have a replay and take in all of these amazing tips that have been given by these amazing women. So that's it. Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope to see you all next week. Bye. Have a lovely weekend.
Oh, thank you, Miriam. Take care. Thank you, Dr. Natalie. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Von. Thanks, Dr. Natalie. Yeah, bye.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.
Oh, thanks, Liswana. Thank you. You were amazing. Yeah.
That was very
Thank
powerful.
you.
Thank you for sharing.
Welcome to our Caribbean and African Targeted Health Improvement Programme, CATHIP Health Hour. The Caribbean and African Health Network, CAN, along with its national partners, are incredibly pleased to continue to bring to you targeted health and well-being education delivered by Caribbean and African doctors. These health hours are all about empowering, educating and giving space to Black people so our communities can look after themselves better. Every Saturday, our Black GPs or consultants present on those health and well-being topics that affect you, your family members and friends. Some weeks will vary and will include other panel members such as pharmacists, specialist nurses and faith leaders. Our health hours cover a range of topics and include mental health, heart health, women's health, reproductive and sexual health issues, men's health, respiratory problems, cancer, sickle cell and many more. We have not forgotten to include within our health hours the many societal, cultural, religious and racial challenges that can go hand in hand with health problems and influence how we should respond to meet health and well-being needs. The sessions are designed for you, and we want you to use the time to listen, learn, share your experiences and ask questions to our Black doctors. During every session, we will gather your feedback so we can continue to respond to the needs of our Black community. To request any particular topic, please email health@can.org.uk. We encourage you to invite others to our health hour sessions, spread the word in our community